All right, is everyone ready to get started with the final session of this year's Partners Meet? Yes? Anyone? All right, good stuff, good stuff. I would like to invite Brian up to share some remarks. Brian?
All right. I've been asked to just give a few brief observations after the last 2 days, and so I'll do so and then bring Madhu up to provide her own. You know, it's interesting. I was at the first partner meeting, and then I was at the second partner meeting, which was the first one that Dasra helped us pull together. I missed last year, and so now here at the fourth. And it's frankly quite astounding, the journey and the difference between this get-together and the first and the second. And I think it frankly parallels some astounding progress that's happening outside, that's happening with FSM across the country here. And so for those of you that are in this every day, every week, every month, it's probably hard for you to understand how remarkable it is to somebody coming in from the outside. I probably come to India maybe 3 times a year, and every time I come, there is some dramatic shift and progress being made. So I just wanted to start by making that observation and frankly congratulating you all, because it's all the work that you and your teams are doing and your partners that is having this impact, and it's really quite remarkable. You know, it's funny, my wife and daughters probably get quite annoyed by me because, you know, on a fairly regular basis, I'll come home with some excitement about some remarkable thing that's happening. And part of it comes from the fact that, you know, we are changing the world. We're making changes that are going to impact, you know, hundreds of millions of people's lives, eventually, you know, billions of people's life on a global basis, that is changing their trajectory for health. You know, we can talk about DALYs and other measures of health, but what really it's more impactful is how many different people's lives are going to be better because of the work that we're collectively doing. And so hopefully, I'm hoping that all of you also have that opportunity to go home and annoy your spouse and your children with the remarkable work that you're doing, and that you feel like you're part of this bigger effort that is truly going to be looked back. I mean, people will look back 20 years from now on this time in India and wonder what the heck happened. How did we go from the trajectory that India was on in 2013, let's say, on sanitation to what happened? And you all, when you are talking to your grandchildren, you'll get to tell them about back when you were working on this. And so I'd say pay attention and keep a journal so that you're remembering not only the things that were dramatic positives, but just how hard it was. Because the other thing that I want to acknowledge, we've had a couple people talk about learning from failures. And, you know, there's one perspective which is nothing's a failure if you actually learn from it, and it can inform your path forward. But one of the things that's dramatically different today, the feeling is different today than it was in the first partner meeting and the second partner meeting, and that is just the level of engagement I see among all of you. So I think actually Kavita was right. The opportunity for you to come and meet with each other on a regular basis, and not only in formal gatherings, but in informal gatherings, and Bollywood dancing together, or having a beer or a coffee together, and learning a little bit more about the challenges that each of you face, leads to trust and leads to hopefully an ability to be a little bit more vulnerable than you would with other people. And so I really want to ask you to kind of leverage that trust and that vulnerability to share when things aren't going quite as well as you would like and you need help. And I'd like to also acknowledge that there's nothing that you can do in this world that is more indicating of respect for someone than to ask them for help. And so there's a lot of people in this room that are very worthy of respect and very capable of providing help. So please, you know, after you leave here and when you run into that next difficulty, obviously, I love the idea of Madhu and Sakshi and Priyanka and the team here being thought partners for all of you, but I would really hope that you think of the other people around the tables that you're at as your thought partners and your kind of support network, because I agree with Alkesh. The next couple of years are going to be really challenging. We have tremendous policy momentum, but implementation is guaranteed to not be smooth sailing. And so we really are going to need to be able to kind of be resilient to recover from when things don't go quite as well as we'd like. And also referring to what Alkesh said, keeping a very open mind. We do not know all the answers. The things that seem very clearly the right thing to be doing at this level of kind of rollout of FSM solutions may prove to not be the right thing down the road. And so being open-minded in a mind space and a mindset where you can be learning from each other and acknowledging when you need to course correct, I think is critically important. So keep on the collaboration. The other thing that I want to say is part of what my job is as a director of our team is always just trying to look a little bit further ahead. And even though, like, I, of course, come across as a very optimistic guy with a lot of excitement about what we're doing, part of my job is actually thinking about the risks and trying to mitigate them. And so it's so interesting to see, you know, at first, the challenge was getting anybody in the government to even care about fecal sludge management. First, to understand what it meant, and then to care about it. That, you have been tremendously successful at that transition. And then it was, okay, now once it's in policy, will there actually be implementation on the ground? And we're now seeing like pure evidence and dollars being spent that we couldn't have said a year ago that is showing that there's actually commitment. And so, you know, I don't know how long ago it was when I first had the first conversation with Madhu and Sakshi that I said, okay, one thing I'm worried about is that we're gonna actually start to build all these FSTPs and many of them will not work. So is there anything we can be doing to think about how we can mitigate that or leverage this amazing partner group we have to mitigate those kind of challenges? And that, a year ago, that sounded like crazy talk, but now I see that there's actually a lot of engagement on that front and a lot of ingenuity being brought to bear to think about how can we make sure that there's the right capacity building and that the likelihood of, in this case, an example of an FSTB being designed and operated well is higher than it would have been if we hadn't thought about it a year ago. So since you're all massive stakeholders in the success of these FSM rollouts, I encourage you also to don't hesitate when you look around a corner and think of something that you're worried isn't getting enough attention, please make sure you flag it at least to our team so that we can either say, here's what we know is happening, point you to the right partner, or like, wow, that's something we hadn't thought about. We'll take that back and see if there's something that somebody should be doing on that front. We learned from other places. For example, I didn't know 5 years ago that Indonesia had built a bunch of fecal sludge treatment plants only to not have any fecal sludge arrive at them, and it was actually a big failure. And so what have we been able to learn from that country's experiences helps us inform a better path forward. I want you all to know that I believe it's very likely that 2 or 3 years from now, there will be a number of countries that are going to want to understand what did India do and what would you encourage us to do. So part of our role at the Gates Foundation today is having people, you know, go on learning visits to Malaysia or the Philippines, for example. I think we're going to wind up having probably a lot of people coming on learning trips to India, and the people they'll want to talk to will be those in the government, but also people in this room. So really kind of keep track of the things that you did one way that you wish you'd done another, because you may never have to go through that learning experience again, but I think other people will certainly be able to benefit from that expertise. I'll leave it at that. I am very energized myself. Every time I didn't participate in the workshops, but every time I came back before they were finished and I walked into the back of the room, and just to see the level of energy and the level of passion that all of you are engaging on these problems with is fantastic. So I feel, just like Alkesh mentioned, I feel very privileged to be a part of this remarkable movement that has developed, and look forward to participating with you as we kind of hit new heights in the coming years. So thank you so much for your engagement and your commitment. And Madhu, are you at the back of the room? Do you need to make your way up here for the next set of observations, I believe?
There's a phrase in the US that I just learned. It's called mind meld. And it seems like Brian and I have that. He stole all my talking points. So first of all, I want to say thank you to all of you. Absolutely. This is a partner convening. And really, really, I think it is remarkable the amount of energy that you all brought to the partner convening. This one stands out for me really as one of those most memorable convenings that we have had. So can we please have a round of applause for each of us? It's also exciting for us because it's really not the end of this convening, but it's the beginning of our new journey. And a journey that we are going in with a huge amount of energy, but we also know, I think, and I've heard from everyone, that it's a difficult one. And all of you are actually facing that today. As I said, implementation, everyone has talked about it, is hard. But I know that we can make this happen. I will call out a few people who raised their hands to 3, 5, and 7 years to solve the entire problem, right? That means huge acceleration. But what was super important is what we heard from our panelists in the morning, that energy of a few people, relatively few compared to the size of India, is all that it needs. And so we have that. And the combination of that energy, when each of us work together, I think multiplies multifold. So we can actually see the end of the road fairly quickly. And like Brian said, hopefully we'll look back 7 years and say, my gosh, really have we accomplished that? Even as we look back in the last 4 years. So our collaboration platforms are what they are because of all of us. And I think that we really feel grateful that you have reaffirmed that they're critical for us and that you are committed to moving those ahead. Is that correct? Is that a correct assumption from us? Raise your hands if you believe so. Okay. So again, we have to reiterate the power of our collective voice. We've seen that power. We'll continuously see it. We'll have more people join into that. We heard a lot about that yesterday, and I know that we're all committed to that. So I think, as I said, Brian took a lot of my points, but I did want to say, and we did all affirm, failures or lessons learned, the more actively we share them, they will happen, unfortunately, more rapidly, because we're going to do accelerated implementation. We will fail, governments will fail, maybe they won't keep up with us, and we may run ahead, and then we need to course correct because the government has different ways to do this. The more we share, I think the collaboration platforms will become even more important. So we might have more frequent meetings, and we have to use technology to the best of our ability to make that sharing happen. We are privileged to have Dasra as a partner to help us come together, use different platforms to make us talk to each other and share our stories. So also, I think it's super important what Pramad said, we have to think about scale. You all thought about that in the workshop, and work backwards. Just for us as internally, we will, as I said, share back what each of us in our groups have thought about in others' organization. And then hopefully there'll be huge pearls of wisdom that each of us can imbibe into our own institutions as we gear up for the future. And we have to provide support to each other, not to say, that's not working, that's a wrong model, and then sit quietly. We have to go and fix it for them, help them, because that's our combined success, right? That human waste, that's common to all of us. It's not Andhra Pradesh versus Telangana versus Gujarat versus Maharashtra. It's India. We have to solve it. That shit flow diagram has to change for all of India, right? It's not one state or the other. There's no competition, hopefully, amongst us all. So I think that's super important. And whichever way we can support that, we're happy to. And if you should tell us how we can do that. We believe that the community that we've created together is a safe space. And we should be able to talk about our challenges very openly and say, and we see that. The WhatsApp group on the NFSSM Alliance is amazing. I think we've started doing that organically. Maybe we can do it more deliberately and really call out some of our challenges. So the last, never the least, we want to know that to achieve success equitably, everyone's cohesive voice on an issue, as I said, can move mountains. The one mountain that we haven't seen in India move very well is gender integration. Right? It's everyone's business. So what I would like our community to model is that all men commit to speaking about gender. Don't leave it to the women to speak about gender. You have to start speaking up and making sure that we give an equitable place to all the powerful women that are in this room. In the language, so if you say anything which is gender specific, you leave out all these wonderful, powerful women at your table. So please rise in protest if we are not included. Yes? Yes? Okay. No manuals, no manuals. I know that Brian has made that his rule. We've communicated that to governments. We should not have any manuals. If there is a manual, everyone in the WASH community will refuse to be on it. If it's a manual, you will not be on it. Is that correct? A manual is a panel with only men. Okay. So if you don't have equal representation on a panel, then hopefully our WASH colleagues will not sit on it. Is that agreed? Yes? Because we have to demonstrate that, right? Time is long gone past where the women have to say it. It's the men have to recognize, if you believe that we add value to your work, to your lives, then you have to fight for us. Because the time is long past where we are going to speak. I don't think we have to prove our value to you anymore. You have to value us now. In every word you say, in every action that you do. Good. So, language is super important in this. That can really change the way the narrative happens. So we have to commit to catch ourselves and catch anyone else that is not reflecting that in their language. So, and then finally, true equity and leadership in each of our organizations and in our partners. That's what we need to commit to. And hopefully next year, we can actually commit to it, look back on the year and said, that's exactly what we did. We committed to this. So show of hands from all the men. Yes? Thank you.